We acknowledge that Tri-Cities Community Television operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them along with the waters and all that is above and below.
Hi everyone, it's Cathy with Tri-Cities Community Television, and we are here at the Poirier Library in Coquitlam, and we'd like to thank the library for donating their space to us. As a continuation of our election series, we have Kyla Knowles in the studio today, and we are talking about why do you want to run for re-election, Kyla?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the opportunities that Port Moody has. At the end of the day, I think this council has achieved a lot of great things in the last 4 years. I can list off a bunch of things that I'm sure you don't want to hear, but in general, objectively, we have made this community safer. We've made it healthier for its residents. We've added more affordable housing than the previous two councils combined. We're working on traffic management. We have greenlit a new Kyle Center, which I think was badly needed. We are paying specific attention to the Moody Center area in terms of increasing parkland and adding tree canopy.
Amazing.
And daycare. We've added hundreds of daycare spaces. And I think the main thing that I want to say is we've been really putting in the work. I think I'm obviously biased, but I think the previous council was kind of so mired in a lot of, dealing with things that weren't necessarily city business, not staying in their lane, obviously dealing with some drama and some legal issues. So a lot didn't get done. And I feel like we hit the ground running, and for the most part have made massive strides in Port Moody in the last 4 years.
Fantastic. What's one issue that you believe matters most to Port Moody residents?
Can I say two? I actually think, traffic is always a big one. It always has been, going back 10, 20, 30 years. And that's the case for, I would say, most communities. And for that, I would say that, we are continuing to look at ways to improve that issue. We brought in pay parking in select locations, very busy locations, a couple of years ago, and our recent results are showing that has worked. People now you can access a parking spot in downtown at Rocky Point now. You can. It's working. The other issue, and I should say, we recently put forward a motion to staff to come back and look at all the suggestions that have been made for traffic to improve, especially during rush hour. And that will be coming back soon. So hope to have some good news on that as well to help those folks struggling with their daily commute. On the second issue that I wanted to mention was property rights. And I know that's not necessarily a municipal issue, but I think it is. It became an issue in the last two councils over the ESA issue. Residents became very concerned that they were losing control of what they could do on their property and what they couldn't do on their property. And I think with the recent kind of uncertainty with the provincial government around title and property rights, that is really coming up again, and people are genuinely concerned about it, and I don't blame them. So people want to know that they have the rights to do with their property what they want. Mm-hmm. And there are things we can do as a municipality on that, and I think we need to be proactive at ensuring people know that those properties are theirs and they're not going anywhere.
So you're saying that people can do what they want on their own property. They should be able to. Is that what I'm hearing?
For the most part, I think a lot of the struggles in the past have been around like environmental setbacks and people feeling like the city was taking too many liberties and telling them what they could and couldn't do, if they could build a shed here or if they could build a shed there. And I think this council has done a lot to alleviate those concerns, but I think there's more to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So then just going into, if re-elected, what would your top 3 priorities be?
Okay, so first of all, Kyle Center. We need to get that built. That has been a priority for me since I first ran in 2022. I think we're well on our way. We've seen several draft versions of the plan, and I think it's coming along nicely. So that's very exciting for me. I would love to see, we need a new library. And if I'm being honest, when I was elected in 2022, I didn't believe that we did. But I've since done the work and I've heard all the research and I've heard all of the advocating from the library board and staff, and we do. We need a new library. Our library does such a great job, but they deserve a bigger space, and then we can have so much more programming that we can offer to our residents. So I would love to see a new library go on the old fire hall lands, perhaps mixed with some seniors, below market seniors housing. That is what I would like to see. So that's the second thing that I'd like to see if I'm reelected. And the third thing is continue to diversify our revenues to take the burden off of taxpayers. So we have done some work on that. In fact, it was quite exciting at a couple of meetings ago. We had to have a discussion about what we're going to do with all these new revenues that we have. And it was just kind of like a very unusual conversation. And councillors, who've been around for a long time, like, we haven't had to have this problem for a long time, right? Because we haven't been bringing any new revenues. So bringing in new revenues is a benefit for our residents.
Okay. Now, we know that housing isn't always a municipal, situation and problem, but it is a major concern. How do we balance growth and affordability and also, protect Port Moody's character?
It's a great question. So the first thing is we have to continue to negotiate with our community builders and our stakeholders in good faith. I feel that was very much missing in the last council. There was a lot of just kind of unfortunate game playing and gamesmanship and one-upping and sending things back and forth, and that's not really a way to treat anyone. And I will stand by that. So negotiating in good faith, doing the right thing, recognizing that time is money, and any sort of delays are not only against the community charter from the province. Delays add costs to residents, right? So if we delay permits and if we delay reviews, those costs eventually fall on residents, and particularly new residents. So we also need to continue to push back on the province. The province, particularly Bill 44, I think has just been, I think it has the potential to be catastrophic. Essentially 99% of Port Moody now, single family homes have the right under Bill 44 to build between 3 and 6 units on those lots. And I think that would be devastating for the character of Port Moody. So I'm very glad that our mayor, along with the majority of other mayors in Metro Vancouver, have written a letter to the province pushing back on that and asking them to rescind that, because I think that would be devastating. The other thing we need to do is advocate to the federal government. We are lucky that we have an MP right now who is very responsive and very present in the community, and she is doing the work and trying to get funding for us and attention to the needs of her home community. So that is very much appreciated. But in general, one of the things that I think is so amazing about Port Moody is we have these distinct neighborhoods, right? We've got Cedarbrooke, we've got Klahani, we've got Newport, we've got pretty soon Portwood, and I think we need to continue to do that work. So I know there's some angst about putting some density in Moody Centre, but I see that as being a really vibrant, walkable neighborhood, and I'm looking forward to the benefits and the amenities it's going to bring.
That's great. So Port Moody does pride itself on parks and trails and the environment. How would you protect and enhance these community assets?
Well, I think we've already done great work. It's hard for me not to say, well, we've already done all this, but we have improved and expanded our trail network. We've drastically continued to work on our tree canopy. We've already got one of the highest tree canopy percentages in all of Metro Vancouver. I think only Lions Bay is ahead of us, but don't quote me on that. We've got 2 parks master plans for both Rocky Point Park and Old Orchard now completed, and we're starting to implement those actively at the moment. Mm-hmm. For the most part, though, it's really letting staff do their work. I mean, our staff are the experts. Councillors aren't experts. Mayors aren't experts. We rely on our staff, and we've got some excellent city staff. We've got tree experts. We've got plant experts. We've got, so for example, even the new boardwalk that was created. I know people don't like it. It's not quite as quaint as the old one, but at the end of the day, that new build was built to the highest specifications so that it has actually improved the environment around that area and in those marshlands. So it's about best practices and making sure we give staff the support they need to do their best work.
Okay, all right. What kind of leadership style have you been bringing to council?
I consider myself a support and a collaborator. So I have brought forward motions individually and on my own. And I think that's what you want in a councillor and a mayor, right? You want to be able to chat with your colleagues, and maybe not all colleagues agree that this should be priority or on the work plan, but I think it's important to listen. So leadership to me is about listening and then acting when you should. So I feel like there's a lot of instances where people can complain about things not being led the way they want, but then your job, your responsibility, it is incumbent upon you to then do that work. So instead of complaining, what's the solution, right? I am a very solutions-oriented person. There are no problems, there are only solutions. We just have to get there.
You just have to get there. That's right. What's one thing you absolutely love about Port Moody?
Oh my goodness. It's the community. Honestly, it's the footprint. When I chose to live in Port Moody, it reminded me a lot of my hometown with the mountains and the ocean and the forest and just how green it is. But I love running into people that I know all the time. I mean, I've run into you all the time. Just on my drive here, I drove up Grant and Gatonsbury, and I saw a friend of mine walking her dog, who I haven't seen for 4 years, whose kid was in elementary school with mine at Glen Eyre for 5 years. And I was just like, man, that I'll bet you that doesn't happen in Burnaby.
Yeah, right. It probably does not happen. What's something that voters don't know about you?
I'm pretty much an open book, but I will say, I think a lot of people don't realize that I was an immigrant to this country. My father was Maori from New Zealand. My mother was Canadian. They met in Australia, and I was born there. So we immigrated to Canada when I was very young. And my father and I only became citizens in 1984. And I say that's important because I did grow up in a small town on the coast, very much like Port Moody, a lot of love to Northwest BC. And my father was a small business owner, and we struggled for a lot of years. My mother was a teacher, and it was pretty much her salary that carried us through for many years. But I think as a result of that, I'm very supportive of our resource industry. I worry very much about communities being too focused on coffee shops and retail industries. We need to I think, get back to basics and support our resource industries and those businesses in Port Moody that provide so much of our commercial tax space. And I know that's not necessarily popular with all of my colleagues, but for me, we need to give support and really start advocating for more light industrial and heavy industrial businesses.
So why should residents vote for you, Kyla?
I hope that I've proven over the last 4 years that I do the work. I have not missed one single meeting. I'm the only councillor who can say that.
That's impressive.
I was the only councillor who voted against giving ourselves a pay increase in 2023. And I don't say that to throw my colleagues under the bus, but this is not about a paycheck for me. I became involved in politics because I saw the need, and I've seen so much progress in the last 4 years that it concerns me about going backwards. So I've brought forward several motions individually and in collaboration with my colleagues to make the community better. Those include, for example, revising our non-jurisdictional policy, which means that council now is more motivated to stay within its lane and not get involved in foreign affairs or other issues that don't concern us, because we've got enough to do here, right? Yes. We don't need to be getting off track, sticking our nose where it doesn't belong. We sent a motion last night about pickleball and recreation. We're adding 2 new temporary pickleball courts. We've established the Arts and Business Task Force to support both those communities. We're having a report come back on that in September, which is going to be so exciting. I think it's really going to help both those communities to thrive, and we haven't really had that support in the past. Tree canopy protection, as I mentioned before, we've added more affordable housing in Port Moody than the previous 2 councils combined, hundreds of daycare spots. And, I think importantly, we've repaired a lot of relationships and a lot of damage that has been done. We get along very well now with our regional and Tri-Cities counterparts. And, those relationships are important because we need to advocate for things together. Mm-hmm. There are challenges and issues and opportunities that we all share, and you need people on council who are willing to work together.
And we'll leave it at that, Kyla. Thank you so much. You're listening to Kyla Knowles today, up for re-election in the fall election here in Port Moody. And she talked about one of her favorite things was community, and how she can see people that she knows, doesn't matter where she's walking, driving, or sky training. Thanks so much for listening to Cathy Chenna with Tri-Cities Community Television. Until next time.